Welcome to This Week in Family Law, the go-to podcast for Australian family lawyers looking to stay updated without the overwhelm. My name is Elena Bezewska. I'm a family lawyer and legal content writer here at Leap Family Law. We're doing things a little differently this week, and if you're watching on, you'll notice we're not in our usual podcast room. We're so excited to come to you live from our family law conference held at Pier 1 in Sydney. The episode today will take on a different forum as we will be interviewing three of our esteemed conference speakers to bring to you the key takeaways of their presentations and to hopefully have you learn something more about them too. I'm joined by Antonia Cacopardo, family lawyer at Leap Family Law. Hi, Antonia.
Hey, Eleanor. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on to this special episode.
I know, I'm excited.
So am I. Yeah. We are in a beautiful setting and the conference has gone amazingly well.
Very lucky. After all the hard work, it's pulled off, yeah.
It has been, I think, an effort that has taken a big part of our team to pull together.
Yeah.
But to have it go really well is so rewarding.
I know.
And we look forward to having future events from next year onwards.
Yeah, no, we're very lucky. All the sessions have run great. They've all been so interesting, relevant topics. And yeah, we're looking forward to bringing the speakers onto the podcast today.
I agree.
Yeah.
We have three speakers today. First, Jahan Kalantar. He's our keynote speaker at the conference. Second, Michael Kearney, Senior Counsel at Waratah Chambers. Last but certainly not least, Liz Kofoed, Partner at Lander and Rogers. Let's get into it.
Here with us today is Jahan Kalantar, a lawyer who wears many different hats. He's a criminal defense lawyer, a family lawyer, the founder of Executive Law Group, a human rights advocate, TEDx talker, and the author of Talk Your Way Out. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. So, we loved your presentation here today at the conference. What are some key takeaways?
I think it's really important for lawyers to understand that this job is really hard, and psychologically we do something that's pretty unusual. And so we take on a lot of baggage from our clients, from our opponents, from the court itself. And I really want people to go and understand that you need to develop resilience, and resilience is developed. Much like the other soft skills and the hard skills, this is something you can learn to be better at. And by getting better at it, you're going to improve your entire quality of life outside of and inside of practice.
Yeah, definitely. And what's one piece of advice you'd have for junior lawyers starting out and how they could try to build that resilience?
I think a myth that I was told that I really want to squash is that this job is awesome and fun. Like you watch TV and you think, oh, they go into court and then they throw a file.
Got your suits
It's nonsense, right? This job is actually really difficult emotionally, psychologically, and technically.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to carry it alone. And it's really important that juniors understand that it's a process. I didn't feel comfortable doing legal stuff. I'm in my, I think, 13th or 14th year now, until about year 9.
Yeah.
Right? And even now I'm still like, oh, am I doing it right? So it's practice. It's constant.
Exactly. It's not just you finish law school and you're there. You know exactly what you're doing.
You have a degree and you're like a monkey with a chainsaw, right? Like you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, you need that practical experience, and that's just after years of being in the field. It's not something you can get from a textbook.
You've nailed it, right? Like what class can I send you to teach you what it's like to get a call from a mother at 8 p.m. on a Friday night saying, hey, they're about to kidnap my child. What do I do?
Yeah.
There's no response for that. And also like the complete minor stuff. Hey, they call you at 4 a.m. on a Saturday. The child was returned with 4 shirts instead of 3. Like
the big issues.
The big issues, right? We major in the minors, we minor in the majors. And so you just develop that over time.
Yeah. No, that's a perfect answer. Thank you. So other than building resilience, what other tips and tricks do you think there are for lawyers practicing at the moment?
I think understanding that you are helping people at the lowest moment of their life and that their IQ is going to drop a bunch because they're dealing with a crisis. And if they are aggressive or unpleasant, it's often not you, it's the situation. But also having a bit of ability to push back.
Yeah.
You're not there to be a punching bag. You're not there to be abused. And our job is hard enough without people being, abusive. So for me, I think that we over focus on the hard skills and under focus on the soft skills. There will always be a job for a lawyer who can communicate effectively with a client, who can pick up a phone and call the other side, who understands what it's like to go through a tough time. And developing that empathy, I think, is a superpower in an age where technology can do a lot of the stuff that humanity can't.
Of course. And the empathy, that's what you really need for a family lawyer.
Absolutely.
Because you need to be sensitive with these clients, but also giving them the hard advice that they might not want to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like learning to deliver bad news kindly is a skill. Right? Hey, you're not going to like what I'm about to say.
But you still need to hear it.
You still need to hear it. It's my job.
Yeah, exactly. So some of our listeners would know your TikTok presence. Jahan's got a very big social media following. You should go check it out. The TikToks are very informative. With this media following, I'm curious, how did you build your platform and how has it affected you attaining professional clients?
So it started during the COVID pandemic. I don't know if you remember, but basically at the time, the Premier Gladys Berejiklian would come out and they would just say like, hey, 30,000 people are sick, 800 people are dead. Here's a new law. Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, completely useless, right? And so I was stuck at home. Practice wasn't happening. And so I thought, how can I help my community? And I started writing little blog posts about like, this is an LGA of concern. This is an intimacy bubble, which no one cared about.
Yeah.
And then one day I said, what if I just make a video about it? I made like a 1.5-minute video explaining it. And from there, I started getting followers. And so I've just been really interested in delivering value and helping demystify the law. I'm one of those annoying people who will go up to my wife and be like, hey, there's this interesting case where this happened. And she'll be like, I don't care. It's of zero interest to me. So the good thing about the internet is I put it out there and if it interests them, they can connect. And if not, scroll on.
Yeah, but you deliver it in a way that is very engaging.
Thank you.
Do you think it's affected any clients that you've received?
At the start, it did bring in clients, but actually it doesn't bring in as many clients as people think. What it does do though, is it makes sure that the clients that do come through the door are very much pre-vetted and they want to work with you.
Yeah.
And so, things like no-shows, things like showing up unprepared, things like being disrespectful really don't factor into our world, which is such a joy.
No, that's so good.
Yeah, it really makes a difference to the quality of client and the energy they bring to their consultations.
Yeah, well, you're doing so well. Can't wait to keep watching. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm here with Michael Kearney, Senior Counsel from Waratah Chambers. And when you asked me to start this podcast some weeks ago, I didn't think I'd be asking Michael Kearney himself if I have lipstick in my teeth. But here we are in preparation for the camera. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Eleanor.
I wanted to ask you about your presentation. I thought it was quite insightful and you had some key takeaways for family lawyers using AI. So for our listeners who didn't have the benefit of hearing you speak in person, do you want to tell us what the takeaways of that presentation are?
Yeah, look, what we were trying to achieve this afternoon was to ensure people aren't scared of AI. AI is going to be part of our environment as practicing lawyers for foreseeable future, probably forever. And I think what we're trying to do is dispel the fear that perhaps some recent judgments of the court and the approach of the New South Wales Supreme Court has instilled in people. Dispel some of the uncertainty about how is it that I go about using AI? What is it that I need to look out for? What are my professional responsibilities when I'm using AI? But perhaps more importantly, from that basis of confidence, to learn where the tools are to use and deploy, to really use AI, and LawWire is a great example of it, to build your practice, to work smarter, to work in a more skillful way, and to devote your time to things other than the tasks that AI can do for us.
Thank you. I think that is such an important message, especially coming from someone with your level of experience in the area, because it's so easy to be skeptical of something that's new. And I still see it as quite a new and evolving thing. But certainly, I think there has to be an element of trying and trust, and having people like yourself comment on that, I think is really important for the profession to hear.
Look, one of the big things I think people realise is look back when computers first came along and your basic services, Butterworths and CCH, became electronic and you could put in a search term. Well, now it's AI. And it's something we should embrace. And if you don't, you will be left behind and your life will be a whole lot harder.
Absolutely. On the topic of lessons, perhaps for family lawyers in practice, as someone who's been in the industry for many years, what do you think is a lesson that's often overlooked or forgotten about that you wish family lawyers were more aware of?
Look, a judge I was a great fan of called Justice Peter Murphy, he used to be a Brisbane-based judge, used to lament, and I've always remembered it, that lawyers don't spend enough time staring out the window. And what he meant by that was, it's too easy to get lost in day-to-day practice, in chasing the deadline, in dealing with the phone call from the client, the court deadline. Taking time to step back and think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, whether it's the right way to do it and whether there's a better way to do it, I think is an often overlooked and very important aspect of a lawyer's practice. And to bring it back to our session this afternoon, it's just as important with AI, because at the end of the day, the most important thing we do with AI is use it as a tool to assist us, but then step back and reflect, check it, understand it, and then deploy it. So to answer your question directly, spend more time looking out the window.
I love that. I think spending time looking out the window is a message I can reflect on a little bit as well. Having stepped out of private practice 18 months ago and started working at Leap, I'm realizing that I'm noticing probably a lot of lessons I should have picked up on in practice, but I just simply didn't have that gap in time, gap in reflection to come up with those conclusions. And it's such a beneficial thing to step out so that you can look in again.
Look, I know it's a counsel of perfection, because when the boss walks past and you're a junior lawyer who's literally staring out the window as they think about a case, you know someone's going to say, are you looking to see if you've got lipstick on your teeth? But it's really important.
Yes.
And you can still bill your clients for doing it.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned the junior lawyers in particular, because you've been in practice and admitted since 1994. Can you tell us what is the hardest period in practice, or what was the hardest period particularly for you?
Look, I don't think if you're continuing to grow and develop as a lawyer, there's ever an easy period in practice, because if you're working hard and learning, everything's always going to be, hopefully, a new challenge. But I think the hardest years are the earliest ones, particularly as a family lawyer, in which I have specialised for almost all of my career. The hardest thing is learning to work really hard as a lawyer when you're working, and then to switch off. And I think that's only got harder. In one sense, I was lucky in that as a junior lawyer, I didn't have that constant intrusion and expectation of contact with clients, being available 24/7, responsiveness to bosses. So that it was probably easier for me. But even then, just learning to ring fence, and that's not a legal skill, that's, if anything, a psychological skill, ring fence the rest of your life, because you are going to be a far better lawyer, you're going to represent and advise your clients far better if you're able to cut off from them. And that sounds almost counterintuitive, but to survive, especially in family law, you've got to do that or you will burn out.
Really important reminder for everyone in practice, particularly as I can see there's a lot of conversation happening about burnout in our profession. What do you do that might surprise people as a method to unwind and pull yourself away from a very stressful job?
Look, it's an old adage, and it's not mine. Many people share it. I have to have at least 2 holidays planned ahead of time. I have to know that I'm going to have a block of time where I'm going and I switch off. And I accept it's easier for a barrister than it is for a solicitor. But when I go away, I am utterly uncontactable. And so that drives many of my solicitors insane, but it's my way of switching off. I have, with my family, really good holidays. I do that twice a year. I'm just back from a 6-week holiday. And the best thing about that is the work can't wait. So they've got to go and get someone else to do it, or it's got to be done. And so for me, it's that cutting off and making sure I'm always planning and having locked in my diary set times off.
And I'm sure in that process, actually building some really nice family memories as well.
No, that as well.
Do you mind telling us where your next 2 holidays are booked to?
The next 2 holidays are skiing. I quite love my skiing, and then back to Africa for another exploration.
Nice. Sounds amazing. Thank you for having this conversation with us. We're honoured to have you on the podcast and certainly as a conference speaker here today.
Thanks very much, Elena.
Here we have Liz Kofoed, a partner at Lander & Rogers in Melbourne. Liz is an accredited family law specialist, and she also is recognised in several categories in the Doyle's Guide for leading family and divorce law. Thank you for being with us, Liz.
Thanks for having me.
It's been wonderful hearing from you today, Liz. What were some key takeaways from your presentation?
We spoke in the panel about, I guess, the first 9 months of the amendments, what our learnings and takeouts have been. I think the overall message has been, whilst it's early days, we've seen some really helpful guidance from first instance and appellate courts about how the amendments play out in practice. We've seen, I guess, the way in which they've played out in mediations as well. We've seen really the central focus on family violence with respect to a lot of the property amendments, really putting that at the forefront of assessments of contributions and current and future circumstances. And I guess the need for evidence around those important issues to be really detailed and particularised so that you can make out the case on both of those parts of the analysis.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see that that's actually at the forefront now when you're considering property matters with family violence.
Indeed.
Yeah. So coming on from family violence, can you tell us about a case where that has been at the forefront?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it seems like it's at the forefront of a lot of matters. It's one of the great equalisers. It crosses all socioeconomic, racial, religious lines. A particular case that comes to mind actually comes from our pro bono practice at Lander & Rogers. Assisting a young woman to get an annulment of her marriage, which in nearly 15 years of practice I'd never done a nullity.
You don't see it often.
You really don't. And this was an unusual set of circumstances at least in my practice. My client was quite a young woman, but had, as a child, been engaged and religiously married, and that religious marriage was confirmed civilly very shortly after her 18th birthday.
Oh, gosh.
And she experienced significant physical, sexual, emotional violence in that relationship and had 3 children.
Horrible.
And she had enormous courage and left that marriage and wanted a fresh start, and in her mind it was a marriage that should never have happened, and
definitely never should have happened.
And for her getting that annulled was really important. She had no intention of remarrying. It was really about what she saw as the way her story should read.
Yeah, of course.
And so we assisted her to get that application of nullity approved.
How was that process?
It was really interesting. It involved, we had 2 alternate grounds to argue, one being no real consent because of her status as a minor at the time that the religious marriage took place. That was interesting because,
how old was she at that?
She was in her teens, around about 14. Of course, she was an adult when the civil marriage took place. So what we had to kind of show was that in that intervening 4 years, she, in the eyes of her community and her country, she was married, and so really it wasn't a choice to be had it when she turned 18.
It was a formality.
Correct. So that was one of the grounds that we put forward, and the other was that the husband had already been validly married to someone else. Which I think my client was maybe the 3rd wife, and what that required was some quite interesting evidence. We needed it by way of expert evidence about marriage laws in the particular country involved, because there wasn't a record of that marriage. It was a religious marriage.
Okay.
And so
how did you go about that?
Oh, it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I reached out to my former university, the University of Melbourne, and asked if there were any contacts or connections that anyone had in the faculty, contacts that I still had at the law school there.
Oh, that's good.
And which was fantastic. And I was put in touch with a retired judge who had been paired with a former judge of this country who had come to Australia as a refugee, a sort of, I guess, mentoring, women mentoring other women. And so this former judge in the relevant country was able to give me that evidence through an interpreter. She wrote a very detailed report about the religious kind of marriage rights in the particular province and region at the time that the husband's first or earlier marriage took place. And what that was able to do was establish that there was no requirement to civilly register that marriage, that the religious marriage itself of the husband to his previous wife was sufficient. And so what it meant for the application is that if the marriage of the husband to another person was valid in the location in which it took place at the time of the marriage to my client, that actually that marriage was not a valid one because of the earlier
of course,
because of the earlier marriage. So it was a sort of a highly technical application.
Sorry, I meant that the first marriage was still valid.
Correct. Sorry,
yes, that's what I meant.
No, indeed. So being validly married,
he couldn't get married a second time.
Precisely.
So what happened with that first marriage? Did he leave the wife in the other country and come to Australia?
Yes, and was sort of still actively in both of the marriages.
Okay, so he was in both,
But my client didn't know about the earlier marriage until after all of her children had been born already.
Oh, wow.
Which was, difficult. And she, as I said, took a lot of courage to...
Definitely, to get out of that situation and then have rewarding work to be able to help someone out of that situation.
It was, and I actually did the appearance in the case, and the judge,
amazing.
Which you don't do often as a solicitor.
But
and it had to go before a judge because of the nature of the power that was being exercised, and I think the judge understood the significance of the application for the client. They really are highly technical applications about were you or were you not validly married at the time your alleged marriage took place, but she understood the significance emotionally for the client and was able to make some really lovely comments when she pronounced the declaration of nullity. It was, honestly, there were very few dry eyes in the courtroom.
Oh, that's really lovely. I just want to touch on the pro bono program that Landers have. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, look, it's a wonderful program. It essentially involves partnering with community legal centres for the most part. So we receive either referrals of complex casework, such as a nullity application, or the other way in which we support community legal centres is through essentially phone a friend services and support lines, because a lot of the time, there are complex cases, but there might only be, particularly in regional areas, only a couple of solicitors in an office. And so being able to draw on resources from a larger firm can be really helpful and empowering for lawyers. We all need to bounce ideas off each other.
Exactly,
It can be a stressful and lonely job sometimes, and so being able to kind of provide those virtual colleagues to our pro bono partners is really rewarding.
And being able to draw on the resources, because you would have exposure to more cases with complex facts than regional areas.
And look, being able to call on favours at the bar in the states in which Landers and Rogers operates is terrific as well. So we're often able to find pro bono counsel in the right case. Those networks can be kind of harnessed.
That's good. Amazing work.
It's terrific.
Oh, I love that. What is a message you would like to leave to practicing lawyers?
That's a good question. I think family law is a hard job, and I think it is a job that if you haven't practiced it, it's hard to convey just how many different demands are placed on practitioners each and every day. I think the best message that was given to me as a young lawyer was to really pace myself. I think that there is a pressure to feel as though you need to be across all aspects of all parts of the various...
Oh, there's so much.
There's a Family Law Act, but then there's also the Child Support Act, the Income Tax Assessment Act, and there are, the Corpse Act in a number of cases too. So I think the idea of careers being built over a long time, and that it's okay to take a long time to build your knowledge and your skills is advice that I was given and that I really valued at the time.
That's really good advice, because you can't know everything overnight, and a lot of family law is practicing and getting that exposure.
That's right.
So, that ties in a bit to my next question. So you've been at Lander & Rogers for over 15 years, becoming partner in 2020. Looking back on your path from junior lawyer to partner, what were the biggest personal sacrifices or adjustments you had to make, and how did you protect your life outside the profession while building your career?
Again, it's a great question. I think it's never easy to combine, a professional career with parenthood, if that's your choice. And I found the birth of my first child was a really, wonderful and enriching time, but a challenging one in my career, because you kind of want it all at once, and you can't.
Yeah.
So I think putting boundaries in place was a hard thing for me to do on my own, and I really was able to lean on my very experienced legal assistant at the time.
Oh, that's good.
To kind of help really actively manage my calendar, help me manage my day, almost giving me permission. So I worked.
That's really nice.
Yeah, I worked, and in fact I still work an early day.
Yeah.
I work 7:30 till 4:30.
Oh, wow.
Which means I'm able to be home for dinner and the evening.
No, that's good.
With my kids are still quite young, and that has worked really well. I think that finding a way to work with your partner to balance life outside of work is important, just as important as using your work colleagues and assistants in my case as well.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. So you're able to have flexible working, leave it at the office, and then go home and enjoy your nighttime routine with the children.
Some days are better than others, it's fair to say, but for the most part, it works. It works pretty well, and having the support of colleagues that are in a similar boat, I think, is really helpful too.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today. We've loved speaking with you.
Thank you very much. It's been lovely to be here.
We've loved being in your ears this week for a special episode brought to you live from the Family Law Conference. If you have any feedback for us or suggestions for future episodes, please do email us at familylawpodcast@leap.com.au. Please also interact with us on socials. We are on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
Stay tuned for next week's episodes. New episodes drop every Monday.